Something fun and interesting today. I got thinking, why don't I have a Jaguar? So I decided to get one. But a few obstacles, right? I don't really have any money. So what do? I can build one out of pieces, parts. That does end up adding up, but it's nice because you can make little purchases here and there. But it takes longer because of that, and you have to figure out your finish work and all that kind of stuff. So I started doing a little bit of research. Fender has a bunch of stuff on Sweetwater, and they actually look pretty cool. There's some cool options on there. The problem though is that you're kind of limited by finishes and specs, especially like on the neck. And they're not like super cheap, so you're already in the price range of just kind of building your own anyway. So then I did a little bit more research, and it would appear that there are many people that are a huge fan of the Squier Classic Vibe series. When I was a kid, which was a shockingly long time ago, Squier was pretty much the most dog shit guitar you could get. However, they've come a long way, apparently. I found a guy here locally that was selling one for a great price. So it's a Daphne Blue Classic Vibe 70s Jag. This Classic Vibe series is honestly really good from what I could tell so far. I played a little bit on this guitar before I disassembled it, but it seems like the fretwork, the quality, the fit, the finish, like anything that I can actually really see seems to be okay. So we're gonna check it out. So we do have a few mods or changes that we're gonna make. So an issue with one of the tuning machines, I think maybe this guitar was dropped or something, but this one is pretty bent and loose and weird, which is kind of a bummer because these vintage style tuning pegs work really well, and I would have loved to have not changed these out, but I think that's gonna be an issue for me. So I got a set of these Geiger locking tuners, and they should fit the same hole size. They look like the vintage ones, they're just locking. So these were pretty inexpensive. We're gonna see if these are good or shitty. The nut on this is supposedly a bone nut, but it will definitely need a little bit of love. The fretboard on these is notoriously very dry and gross from the factory, so I already took this thing off, gave it a little bit of a cleanup and a polish, scraped gunk off, gave it some fretboard conditioner, and you can see that it's already looking a lot better. The frets probably need a little bit of a polish. We're gonna find out if we have any buzzing frets or issues like that when we get to the setup. It may need a little bit of help. But the fret ends feel really good. There's no sharp frets, there's nothing protruding. And it has this, this classic kind of Fender neck tint color to it, which I really like. It actually looks awesome. It is a gloss neck, but it doesn't feel bad. The shape feels really good, and I can always hit it with a little bit of steel wool or something on the back. So we also, of course, got some Loctite because stock offset hardware pretty much always needs a little bit of Loctite. The other thing that's very important to do with pretty much any offset guitar, and I know there's mixed opinions on this, but really it's important to shim the neck and make sure that there's a proper angle. Some models have an angled neck pocket already, so you have to kind of look and make sure, but this one I can tell you when I got it, the bridge was slammed completely down to the body, and it's just not gonna work that way. So we've gotta get some of that downward tension on the bridge, and we're gonna do that by angling the neck slightly and raising the bridge. I got this Fender neck plate to replace the Squier one. Didn't need to, just felt like it. Also, the screws are gonna be higher quality, but I don't know if they're gonna be too long, because sometimes Squier bodies are thinner than Fender bodies, and I actually don't know if this one is, so we're gonna find that out as well. And last but not least, a set of strings. You can use anything you want, obviously. I'm gonna play around with some flat wounds. Also, I didn't want to title the video this or do any weird clickbait shit, but McGee, if you're familiar with him, is really popular right now. He's a very cool musician. He has such an interesting approach to guitar and a cool tone, and there's tons of videos out there of people sort of dissecting this whole thing. But if you're somebody who is interested in playing music like he does and setting up a guitar the same way that he does, this will be helpful. Also, shout out to a couple guys that have incredible videos and channels as a whole on YouTube. There's videos that are probably way better than the one that I'm making right now on this topic, so you can go watch those. One is from Mark Gutierrez, I think is how you say his name. He has actually, I think, this same model, and he kind of upgrades some stuff in that video. And then, of course, Mike Adams, guy's a legend. He has a fantastic video where he set up a Squier, classic Vibe Jaguar, for his friend and kind of goes over the finer points of setting one of these things up. So my video will kind of be an unnecessary, worse version of both of those things combined. So you're gonna love it. All right, so new tuning machines. Let's take the old ones off here. Just a tiny little screw kind of holding each one in place. They slide right out. These new ones should slide directly in. Yep, there we go. Okay, so now we're just gonna replace these tiny little screws. Pretty good. Okay, so we're gonna have to put a 1 degree neck shim in here. The only thing is it doesn't fit exactly, so it's kind of sticking out. Just gonna take a little bit of sandpaper and kind of fit it properly. And as you can see, we've got it shaved down just enough to where you can't see it. It's not sticking out from the pocket. So now we can put the neck back on and make sure everything looks good with that. I ended up using the Squier screws because the fender ones were just slightly too long, so. Okay, let's pop on this stock tremolo unit. We can change this really easy in the future if I decide to. We'll see if it makes any noise once we get it on. Okay, so let's put a little bit of lemon oil on the fretboard here. I already did this once and it helped a lot, but this is going to just kind of keep it looking as shiny and dark as possible. Okay, so let's put a little Loctite on the bridge post here. Screw it in once we've done that, so that way once it sets, it won't sink on us when we start doing the setup. Here's our strings. We're gonna do the Jazz Light gauge, I think it is. So it's a 52 on this bottom string, and the slot is not big enough. So we're gonna hit it with a little bit of sandpaper. If you're cooler than me, you have the little files that are the exact size, but I don't have those. So the high string is a 12. And I'm just gonna adjust the bridge now to the right height, or approximately. Tune this up to pitch. So the action looks pretty low. I think that'll be good. Let's bring the rest of these strings through. I'm gonna have to widen the nut slots for each of them as well. Okay, moment of truth. So we got the neck on here, obviously with the shim. That's looking and feeling really good. It's given us a lot more tension on the bridge, so it made the setup portion of that a lot easier. So I got the bridge height and the string height and everything sort of set once I got all the strings up to pitch. I ended up keeping it tuned pretty low because these are kind of heavier gauge strings. I ended up being able to tune it to drop B or C sharp standard, yeah. And everything's working out really good. The low string in drop B is obviously a little bit floppy. There's not a super significant amount of tension, but the chrome set that I bought wasn't really set up for drop tuning. So the next step after I got all the strings on, made sure all the nut slots were cut wide enough, was of course just setting the general height for the strings, but then also the intonation. Intonation is obviously very important so that the notes actually ring as true to pitch as they can. Setting the intonation is really, really simple and easy once you've done it. If you're not familiar with it, drop me a comment below. I can sort of contact and walk you through what I do for it. It's super simple. So I've just kind of played with it and messed around with the tones, and I really like the way it sounds. I think the combination of the flat wound strings, which are really warm and mellow, And the combination of that with the lower tuning, I think makes the single coil jangly thing that a Jaguar has sound really cool. As you can see, or hear, I guess, it sounds really good, at least I think. It's all subjective, but it's got that nice kind of single coil clarity to it, but it still sounds really great with fuzz or pretty heavy gain. The pickups obviously have a little bit less output and they're less compressed than humbuckers or anything like that, but they still have a really cool sound and they're kind of ratty, which I think is a cool texture, a nice thing to kind of mix in sonically when you're recording some kind of dense guitar parts, stuff like that. I do really, really like playing this guitar. It's so easy to just like do strange chords and stuff on because the scale length is so short. It's like I can reach so many frets without even trying. So very, very comfortable. Overall, super impressed with this guitar for the amount of money that I got it for and with very, very minimal into it. That's my opinion on the Squier Classic Vibe 70s Jaguar. My opinion's worth basically nothing, but maybe you got something out of the video, maybe it was helpful in some way. Maybe you are like me and you wanted a way to get into a Jaguar for less money. If you have any questions about what I did in this episode or anything that you might be thinking about doing, drop me a comment and I'll get back to you.